Now, Ebola has claimed more than 1,000 victims, and those who are affected are double this number. Now, the deadly virus has gone pandemic, earning a dreaded name, the king cobra of deadly viruses. Now, due to this, WHO, or the World Health Organization, has announced Ebola as a global threat. They are afraid that little or nothing is actually being done to contain it. Well, countries around the world have doubled up their efforts of isolating Ebola victims who might find their way from Africa to their country. What are these special measures being taken by these countries to contain Ebola? Is there a secret serum to cure Ebola which America is not sharing with the rest of the world? And is India prepared for this deadly disease? Well, let's find out all this and much more in our special.
Ebola has spiraled out of control. Just a matter of time before it reaches our shores. Ebola outbreak has become pandemic.
This morning, I am declaring the current outbreak of Ebola virus disease a public health emergency of international concern. The committee's decision was unanimous. Its advice to me acknowledges the serious and unusual nature of the outbreak and the potential for further international spread, but also the need for strong international coordination of the response. The declaration of a public health emergency of international concern alerts the world to the need for high vigilance for possible cases of Ebola virus disease, but by no means implies that all countries, or even many countries, will see Ebola cases. Only a small part of the African continent is currently affected. Above all, the committee's conclusions and my decisions are a clear call for international solidarity. Countries affected to date simply do not have the capacity to manage an outbreak of this size and complexity on their own.
Yes, the Ebola threat is real. The WHO, that has been closely monitoring the deadly disease from day one of the outbreak, has now issued a global warning. And mind you, the deadly Ebola virus has made its way out of Africa. Ebola has a strike rate of nearly 90%, killing its victims within days of being infected. WHO has declared this virulent disease a pandemic and called out to nations across the world to be vigilant before it's too late. There are rumors of the infection spreading globally. Unconfirmed reports suggest, apart from Africa, the disease is slowly taking over the rest of the world, amidst fears that it has or it could reach India any time now. This only means that there is a need to act, and act right now. The international community is now spending sleepless nights to contain an outbreak they have never witnessed before.
Response to the disease has been a failure.
And the Ebola virus is just getting warmed up to engulf the whole world.
Many people are not cooperating with efforts to contain the disease.
Authorities are now calling an emergency before things can get worse than the present situation.
Little action taken to get out in front of this problem, and now we are seeing the consequences.
The largest Ebola outbreak in history, with more and more countries involved, the exact number is almost impossible to determine. But officially, more than 1,000 people have died, and the number of people infected could be double or, unfortunately, even triple of this number. The list of people infected even includes 2 missionaries from America who had been to Africa to care for Ebola-infected patients. The 2 doctors were brought back to America, which was not an easy decision.
So concerning about Ebola is that the stakes are so high. that a single lapse in standard infection control could be fatal.
Let's show you now how quickly this deadly infection can spread. This is a real-world example, a case study from an Ebola outbreak in the early 2000s. A young woman in Uganda didn't know she was infected with Ebola, and she was in close contact with 6 people. In a short span of time, her baby and her father-in-law both got sick. The baby then got the grandmother sick, and she came in contact with 2 more people who got infected as well. The father-in-law had close contact with 12 people. Out of this, his brother and his cousin both fell ill. The brother then infected 4 more people. Meanwhile, the cousin was in close contact with 5 more people, including another brother who used to just use his blanket.
If you leave behind even a single burning ember, it's like a forest fire, it flares back up.
That's the reason why breaking the chain is essential to stop the epidemic.
Do know how to stop Ebola. Meticulous case finding, isolation, and contact tracing and management.
But what about people who do get sick? Congressional doctors grilled American authorities, especially about the experimental drug ZMapp. It has never been used on humans before. For now, only the 2 American doctors have received this magic serum, despite thousands of Africans who continue to suffer from Ebola infection.
I would like for you to talk a little bit about that because there's a lot of concern that maybe we have access to this and are not providing that access.
For now, the American authorities are not taking the direct questions about a magical cure for Ebola.
I really would need to refer you to the National Institutes of Health, which would be the lead on developing new treatments and vaccines against Ebola.
The drug tested on 2 Americans for Ebola has successfully shown positive results.
Medicine was administered after it was brought to us by the NIH people, and there was improvement. They seem to have gotten better.
The International Committee is just worried about one point. Ebola virus can indeed make its way to other countries through others.
Inevitably, there will be travelers, American citizens and others, who go from these 3 countries or from Lagos, if it doesn't get it under control, and are here with symptoms.
Now, with the outbreak, it's definite that it's time to gear up and get ready. Well, it all began in Africa, and now, before a cure can solve the Ebola crisis, efforts are being taken to quarantine the vicious disease in the continent. Even the defense personnel have been deployed to fight the deadly virus. Army roadblocks are now in place to stop Ebola from spreading. Meanwhile, the most affected countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea, are struggling to control the pandemic. Medical quarantines are in place in all these countries. Still, Ebola continues to spread. International agencies hope isolation can prevent the deadly disease from spreading further.
This is an infectious disease which can be contained. It is not mysterious. This is something which can be stopped.
A lot of optimism can be witnessed across the globe despite the fact that Ebola is spreading at a lightning speed. Ebola neither has a cure nor any vaccine to stop it from spreading. But declaring it an international emergency can effectively prove to be a step towards raising vigilance. But can a heightened global awareness and a focused containment be sufficient to put an end to the Ebola crisis, the king cobra of deadly viruses?